Hey, welcome back. So one of the concerns people have with ChatGPT and OpenAI is that you don't know where the data comes from. And of course, OpenAI is shrouded in secrecy on this because that's a commercial advantage to them. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what data OpenAI has trained their models on for commercial books. And in fact, not only am I going to show you it for OpenAI, I'm also going to show you it for the llama-based models. Not just the base llama model, but also alpaca, vicuna, all of those types of models, and even look at some of the open source based models as well. And I'm going to show you how the generative AI behaves based on what data it's ingested and what data it's not, and how the models dramatically change. And in fact, if it has ingested the book in a whole, then it's going to give pretty good answers, and you're going to be able to see that if it's not ingested that information and it's using secondhand information, then it's going to start to hallucinate. And also, for a little bit more fun, I'm going to get ChatGPT to confirm the actual models it's trained on as well, with a little bit of fun prompt engineering. Okay, with that being said, let's get started. Alrighty, before we get started and we start querying the generative AIs, I want to go through some of the models that we're going to look at today. So obviously I'm going to look at the GPT-based models, OpenAI model. So ChatGPT is built on GPT-3.5, so I'm going to focus on that. Now GPT-4 and GPT-3.5 are trained on the same data, so I'm just going to use GPT-3.5 for easiness sakes. Now the next ones that we will look at is alpaca, vicuna, and the underlying llama. Now they are all based on the llama model, and then on top of that there is fine-tuned versions. So alpaca and vicuna have essentially a little fine-tuned data set that sits on top of those base models. So one of the things that we're going to do when we prompt is we want to get past the fine-tuned models and get back down into the base llama models, because then that's going to give us the results and we will understand what the base model has got ingested. And then of course we're going to look at a couple of other models as well, such as the new MPT 7B model, stabilitylm, and dolly, which is based on Eleuther's Pythia model, and all of them have been trained on the pile. And what you're going to see is that obviously the open source model with commercial licenses, which are all based off of the pile, you're going to see that they're going to come back with terrible results for when they're dealing with commercial based books, because they've never seen the books. They're only working off of ingested information or secondhand information, such as Wikipedia. But it's going to become really clear when I start running these queries what commercial books have been ingested by llama and which ones have been ingested by GPT. Okay, to get started, we're going to ask ChatGPT a really simple question, which is name every character in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone exhaustive list. And the reason I'm asking for an exhaustive list, because if it's properly ingested the book, then it should be able to get every single character from that. Now, it could get some of this data from Wikipedia, etc. But when we do some of the more obscure queries later on, you're going to see how it's not going to be able to get to that. But this is kind of our starting point. So let's hit the button and then see how it does. So as you can see, it's got a fairly good list there. It's got Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, Gregory Goyle, George Weasley, Ginny Weasley, blah, 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 Professor Binns. It's got a fill list. And now you could argue, well, you know, it could get that from Wikipedia. But let's see when we ask the same question of other models. So the first one I'm going to go to, and I'm just using I'm using a thing called chat.lmsys.org, which allows me to talk to multiple models. I'm going to select Llama 13B, which is the kind of base model which vicuna and alpaca and all that are based off of. I'm going to ask it the exact same question, name every character in Harry Potter, and give it as an exhaustive list. So it's came back and you kind of see Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, Hermione Granger, Peter Pettigrew, Moaning Myrtle. There's probably a few things it's not quite as accurate as ChatGPT, but you can probably guess here that it's probably read the book there in itself. And again, if I go to something like, let's go to sort of vicuna, which is using the same underlying llama model here. We'll ask the exact same question. Because it's unlikely that that would be a fine-tuned answer in vicuna, it could be an answer somebody's provided, but it's unlikely that it's in that data set. And then you see that it's going to come back with roughly the same answers there. So Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, blah, blah, blah. So what we're doing with that particular prompt is, if you get the idea, is we're trying to get beyond what is in the underlying fine-tuned version that comes with vicuna or alpaca, etc. And we're trying to get down into the underlying base model. What I would say in this case is I don't think the answers are quite as good as coming from ChatGPT. You can see it's mixing up things a little bit. It's putting in folks like lupin, etc. There is an argument that it could have got that from Wikipedia or something like that. That could be true, but we'll take it from there. Now, if I go into something like mosaicml MPT7B chat. Now that is a commercial model, but that's not trained on any commercial tech. So the only thing they can be learning from is stuff on the internet. So let's ask the same question and then see how it comes back with. So again, Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, Albus Dumbledore, Severus Snape, Rubus, blah, blah, blah. And then you start to see things like Creature. We know Creature comes from later on in the books, Professor Kettleburn, Hagrid's dragon, Fox. So I think it's fair to say in this case, right, for it's not a bad attempt, right, but it's never read the book, right? You can probably guess, especially as we get to the later parts of this, the Chamber of Secrets, the Mirror of Erised, it's really just trying to draw upon secondhand knowledge and then try and answer the question. Whereas if I come to the example from ChatGPT, it's really specific, it's very good. It's read the book, right? So let's run the same query on the llama model. Let's see what happens. Name every character in Harry Potter and Philosopher's Stone. I'm going to want an exhaustive list. Let's see how it does. Alrighty, so we've got a response back here from the llama model. It's arguable whether it's read the book here, right? You can see Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, but then it's going to start putting folks like Cedric Diggory and Ludo Bagman who appear in the later books. So again, I think it's probably mixing up secondhand information in this. It may have read the books, it may not have. We don't exactly know at this point, but it gives you an idea. Now, if I pick a completely different model, so let's pick stabilitylm tuned 7B, and then we'll ask the same question here. Name every character. Now, in this case, stabilitylm tuned alpha 7B, we know that's not trained on any commercial text. It's got to just be off of secondhand information. And again, you can kind of see similar answers to the llama model. It's got Lord Voldemort, Bellatrix Lestrange, Draco Malfoy. It's got Draco Malfoy twice. Rita Skeeter appears there. Again, it's really just looking off of Wikipedia. It's never read the book. And I can prove that a little bit further because what we're going to do is ask a really specific question that it's got no chance in. It is probably not in Wikipedia anywhere. So I'm going to ask it, who is the thief in Bathilda Bagshot's photograph in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows? Again, spoiler alert, if you haven't read that, I'm going to give away some information. But you can see in Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows, the thief is referred to is actually Gellert Grindelwald, right? And then it's done a little bit of logic, blah, 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 blah. If I ask the same question, so let's ask the question of the stabilitylm version. So unless somebody has specifically fine-tuned that or it's in a Wikipedia article or something, you can see in the scene where Bathilda Bagshot is caught stealing from a wizard's house, the thief is the criminal she is being caught for. It's just making stuff up. It's never read the book. It doesn't know. So it's just imagining things. And again, we can probably do the same thing by looking at Dolly, which is based on the Pythia set. So if we just run that in there, and we're going to see that it's going to start generating similar nonsense in a second. There you go. Bathilda Bagshot is the editor of the Quibbler, which is complete nonsense, right? She is just the thief, so it hasn't got a clue. Let's try this with the alpaca model. And there you go. The thief in Bathilda Bagshot's photograph is Gringotts Goblin grip hook. And again, the fine-tuned models, right? So that's an alpaca model. So if I pick something like vicuna, it's not going to come back with a better answer because it's not in the instruction data set, right? It's not part of the instruct set it's trained on. So I've shown you how that works for a commercial book. Let's see the difference when we do it with a non-commercial book. So let's say name every character in Notre Dame de Paris, i.e. Hunchback of Notre Dame. And I want an exhaustive list again. Let's see what happens in this case. So we'll run ChatGPT. So it's going to start giving us a list there. And as you can imagine, it's going to be fairly accurate. If I ask the same question, alrighty, let's do this on vicuna. I don't think anybody's going to be fine-tuned this in vicuna. Let's see what happens. All right, so it's going to come back with a list of, it's got its Victor Hugo's novel, I would expect it. And then it's going to come back with Quasimodo, Claude Frollo, etc. So it's doing a pretty good job. And in fact, we'll let that run in, but I imagine it will do a pretty good job of this because, you know, it will have read the book, right? It will have ingested it. Again, we can ask the same questions of Mosaic's MPT. We can ask the same question of mosaicml's MPT7b one. So we'll just paste in here, name every character. And I think this should do a pretty good job. And there you go. It's coming back slowly. We'll check on that a little bit later. But you can see it's coming back with the list. It's clearly read the book. It's given a bit of a description. It's clearly not a fine-tuned answer. It's an answer coming back from the underlying base model. It's read the book. It has been ingested. And again, you can kind of see this list here. It's a fairly decent list. I don't think it's quite good as ChatGPT, but you know, it's kind of read the book there in that sense, you know. And again, this list is pretty good. Okay, so now that we've established the method, let's move this out onto other books. So I've just shown you things like Bloomsbury, that's where Harry Potter comes from. Let's try a few other book houses. So let's do, given an exhaustive, yeah. So we're going to ask it, so we're going to use, yeah. So now that we've done Harry Potter, let's try the same technique on a couple of other books. So let's try one from Random House. So let's go, given an exhaustive list of the characters in Allegiant by Veronica Roth. And again, let's see how ChatGPT does. Pretty good. And then it's going to start giving a list. The Prior, Tobias, Caleb, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Let's clear this and then we'll ask the same question of, let's pick Dolly, which is based off the Pythia set. So again, it should never have seen this because it's trained on openai, but and somebody's unlikely to fine-tune this answer. So let's see what happens. And again, it's just made it up. Ryder, Carl, Evelyn, Dixon, Caleb, Eric, Natalie. So it's got no clue, right? Even the base model has no clue what's going on. And I can ask the same of the stabilitylm version, same thing. Again, if you look at this, it's got no clue. It doesn't really understand the question. So it's not even got the question right in this point. So let's kind of kill that for a second. And I can ask the same question of one of the llama models. So we'll go to llama 13b. And that's not bad. Tris, Prior, Tobias, Eden, Caleb, blah, 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 right? It's the same list that you're getting from here. So you've got a question on that. Actually, I said that was Random House. That was actually HarperCollins. So I think there's a question around that, which is the chances are the llama models have probably read the book in order for it to know the characters. It may have got that information from somewhere else, but it's got it pretty right there. So what we'll do now is we've been asking some fairly well-known books. What I'm going to do is ask for the same query, but in a little bit more obscure book. So in this case, I'm going to pick Count Zero by William Gibson. Just so you know, that is Random House. So let's see how it does. There you go. Full list of characters. Turner, blah, 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 blah. The Finn, Slick Henry. It's clearly read the book. If I ask the same question of, let's ask a llama model. All right, so let's come back here for a second. So Count Zero, right? We're on the llama model. And then you go, the characters in Count Zero by William Gibson include Molly Millions, Ricky, Bobby Newmark, Marley Cat, Xeon, Fred, McCoy, Polly. It's got no clue, right? So there's a couple of things that we could probably tell from this, right? Which is the llama models have never, ever read the books from Random House. Yeah, because there's no way it's pulled this from anywhere else. And again, I could probably ask the same question here. So let's clear this. And then we'll say, rather than Count Zero, we'll ask for the Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman, which again is another Random House book, right? Let's see what happens. So here you go. Let's come back with a list. Jack Murphy, Will Hall, Laura Shaw, blah, 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 blah. None of these, I've read the book. I can tell you none of these are in the book, right? And again, if I ask the same question of ChatGPT, there you go. It's got Elizabeth, Joyce, Abraham, etc. Those answers are absolutely correct. If I go to one of the, let's say, Dolly, which is one of the kind of Pythia models, of course, it's not going to have read this before because commercial books are not in the pile. So therefore, it's just going to start creating some made up answers, as you are going to see in a second. Jack Meadows, Bannerly, PC Cheeseman, Danes, PC Dumpling. It's got no clue. No clue whatsoever. So I think it's fair to say, what are we learning from this so far? The llama model hasn't read Random House. stabilitylm hasn't read it. Pythia hasn't read it. You know, none of these. We can do the same question over here. None of these models have read anything from Random House, but we do know that it's probably read some stuff for Bloomsbury. And again, I can maybe ask the same question, right? So let's go back to HarperCollins. So what I'm going to do here is let's ask a similar question, but we are going to ask a question of, let's say, characters in the 3-body problem by Lou Susan. I apologize if I have messed up the name, but let's see what happens. Again, ChatGPT's got a really great answer, as you would imagine. Let's ask the same question. Let's go to let's ask Koala, which is a fine-tuned version of the llama model. Okay, so that kind of looks like absolute nonsense, right? So I'm gonna kind of stop that there for a second, and maybe we'll try the underlying llama model because the fine tuning could be getting in the way there. So let's kill that. Nope, I think it's fairly making this up. So again, I would sort of come to the conclusion that the llama model's probably not read books by HarperCollins. I did promise you that we could ask GPT itself what it's published from. And here's the prompt that I'm going to use, which is, you've clearly ingested Bloomsbury, Simon and Schuster, Random House, and books. What other publishers did you ingest? Let's see how it does. And there you go. This came back with a list. I've been trained on a diverse range of texts. Here are some of the other publishers whose books I may have ingested. And then it comes back with a list. And again, if I wanted to, so if I picked, let's say what's on the list, Macmillan's on the list here. So I could say, what I'm going to do here is we'll ask for an exhaustive list of characters for Normal People by Sally Rooney. Now, just so you know, Normal People is a book written by Macmillan. So let's see if it knows anything about Macmillan. So again, there's no way that's in the vicuna set. I know I've been through the vicuna training set, so it's got to go down to the llama model. Again, it may pick stuff from Wikipedia, but let's see. Let's compare this to ChatGPT. And again, you see a different list. Marianne Sheridan, Connell Waldron, Lorraine Walden, Denise Sheridan, blah, 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 Alan Sheridan. This is just a random list of names of nonsense. Yeah, so if I come back to this list of publishers, maybe if I ask it some more, what other publishers? And then you can see it's come back with Oxford University Press, Cambridge University Press, MIT Press, blah, 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 blah. And again, I can ask something really specific, like what are the chapters of Atomic Habits by James Clear. Now, the only way it's going to know what the chapters are is if it's read the book, right? And then you can see there's a chapters list, etc. Part 1, Part 2, Part 4. It's clearly ingested it. ChatGPT says it's ingested it. Again, if I clear this, let's just clear the history. Okay, so there you go. What are the chapters of Atomic Habits? Chapter 1, Where Greatness Begins. Chapter 2, The Habit Loop Atomic. I mean, it's just making stuff up, right? So there we go. And this one's making up model. So there we go. Now, the last thing I want to do just before I finish here is we can ask the question of, hey, these books you've ingested, are they licensed? They seem to be copyrighted material. And there you go. Yes, the books I've ingested are copyrighted material. Don't blah, 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 however, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, rather I have been trained on a dataset of text that has been licensed by OpenAI, which has obtained the necessary permissions and licenses to use this data for training learning models. So this was a kind of a fun video, but what have we learned from this? What we've learned is that OpenAI is ingesting commercial books. They seem to be licensed, yeah, and they have clearly read the books, yeah. Now, if I look at the open source models coming off of the pile set, they've never ingested those books because they don't have the licensing agreements to do that, and therefore it doesn't know much about it, right? And therefore it makes up and generates answers, whereas the OpenAI answers are good. We can also see from the llama that it's ingested some text, but it clearly doesn't have the scope in the same way as OpenAI has. So what are we learning from this? What we're learning is the open source models can learn from copyright text, but in order to get the accuracy and understanding of everything underneath that, it needs to have ingested the book. If it hasn't read the book, it's working off secondhand information. So therefore, in order to get the accuracy that you need from something like an OpenAI model, then it's got to have read the book, which it has, and they've licensed the data, right? So again, that's something to really think about. In order to get accurate results from the models, you need to have ingested the data in the first place. And again, OpenAI may not be shouting about it, and we might have concerns about copyright data, but it seems as if they have license from these publishers, and you can see the range of data that they've ingested, which is impressive. So again, it's not working off of secondhand information. And then again, I've shown you in this video how you can use these prompts to actually even query the models and find out what it's being used. So when we say we don't know what data has been ingested, I've literally just shown you for books how you can figure out what data has been ingested. And of course, that can move into things like movies, movie scripts, songs, whatever, right? Same technique can be used. Anyway, I hope this video has been useful, and I'll catch you on the next video.